audiobook nerds. For today's video, it feels obligatory to have a cup of coffee. So I've got my dog person mug with me here. Today I'm going to talk to you about a CAFECITO story, El Cuento del CAFECITO. This is by Julia Alvarez. I'm not sure how she pronounces her name. My cup of coffee is definitely not the kind that they are going to be talking about in this book, but it's still good. It's still good to me. Yeah, I love my coffee in the morning. So this book is really hard to describe and it's extremely short. So I'm going to give you the spoiler warning up front. Obviously this is about coffee, but if you don't want anything more, here's your spoiler alert. Side note, I do have my baby recording with me again, so if you hear her in the background, that is why. So this book is basically a love story around coffee. This edition has English and Spanish. It's really kind of unique. Here, let me set my coffee down so I can kind of show you. It's got English and Spanish sections and it switches back and forth. Alvarez is from the Dominican Republic. She was born here, but her family is from the Dominican Republic and she was actually raised there. So yeah, she's from the Dominican Republic. And this isn't a true story, but it's based on a true story. It's kind of based on her life, but it's not the exact story. But anyway, the story follows a man named Joe, who is a teacher in Nebraska, and he pretty much runs away to the Dominican Republic and becomes a coffee farmer on a sustainable farm, and he builds this relationship with the people there, and then he comes back to Nebraska and he meets his wife and they fall in love, etc., etc. That's really the story. That there really isn't much more than that, to be honest, because it is so short. But this book is about the value of sustainable farming, about slowing down and enjoying the fruits of your labor. Not everything needs to be mass-produced. It's okay if things take time. I wouldn't even call this a novella. It's more like a short story. I think they actually call it a parable. But yeah, it's really short. You could easily read it in one sitting while enjoying a cup of coffee. But basically what I got out of the story, besides the fact that sustainable farming is a good thing, basically I got the vibe that you need to find what you love and find what makes you tick and go for it. Go after your dreams because life is just too short. So if you feel like something's missing, get out and figure out what you need to fulfill yourself. This story is written almost like poetry. Some of the lines in here are just beautiful. I studied Spanish for like 12 years in school, and I used to be married to someone who is Hispanic and their whole family spoke Spanish. So like my Spanish I feel like is decent. I don't consider myself fluent, but I can get by in conversations pretty easily. I can read and write Spanish really well. The Spanish that I'm used to though is Mexican Spanish, not Dominican Republic Spanish. So while I did try to read the Spanish sections, I was really glad that it was translated into English because sometimes there were words that I just did not know because they were Dominican Republic words and I would have needed like the Mexican version of those words. But I still really enjoyed reading the Spanish. I had just been saying the other day how I had never read a book in Spanish and how I would like to give it a try. And then ironically, I picked this up. So it's kind of like a little test run. I don't think my Spanish is good enough to read a full novel in Spanish, but I'm trying. Maybe someday I'm trying. But anyway, this book is just written so beautifully. Some of the lines just feel like poetry. I'm going to read you a couple lines. I'll read it in English and in Spanish. It is amazing how much better coffee grows when sung to by birds, or when through an open window comes the sound of a human voice reading words on paper that still holds the memory of the tree it used to be. Es sorprendente lo bien que crece el café cuando le cantan las aves o cuando a través a una ventana abierta le llega una voz humana que lee las palabras en el papel que todavía guarda el recuerdo de haber sido árbol. Please don't make fun of my Spanish. I am working on my accent. but I know it still needs work. But Spanish is my second language, so please don't make fun of my accent. But anyway, there are lines like that throughout this whole book, and it's just so beautifully written. I really enjoyed it. If you pick this up, I would say don't go in expecting some groundbreaking, enthralling story, because it is very basic. You get very minimal details, but it works. I don't know how else to put it. It works. It's interesting, and it's just something if you're a coffee lover, if you are just looking for something like a little palate cleanser, because it won't take you long, like this would be a good read, I think. I am going to read the last paragraph of this book because I feel like it sums up the entire point of this book, and it kind of should have been at the beginning of the book. So forewarning. Read this book while sipping a cup of great coffee grown under birdsong. Then close your eyes and listen for your own song. As for this story, pass it on. So like I said, this book seems to be about finding what makes you tick and going for it. And enjoying good coffee on the way. And I'm passing on the story, so there you go. So check it out. Let me know if you've read this, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. That's all for me this week. I hope you guys are having a lovely Monday. Go enjoy a cup of coffee. Again, I know this is not the kind of cup of coffee that they would like me to be having, but it's all I've got right now, so cheers. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thanks for talking books with me.